During COVID, I wasn't able to get out to my usual field sites where I would go and survey with my drone and satellite data. So I decided that I would actually start to monitor one of my local beaches. So they're areas where we know that there's a tendency for erosion. They're quite dynamic areas. And as we started to approach the wet season, I thought, let's start getting some data before the wet season comes, before we get lots of rains, and let's start having a look at the beaches and then monitor how that changes over time. The first time I put the drone up at our local beach, I was looking at the images and couldn't quite work out what I was seeing. I knew I was flying over some mangrove forest and I expected to see it green, but there were large patches of grey. I couldn't figure out what that was until I downloaded all the data when I got home and realized that there was a large patch of the mangrove forest that had died. This part of the forest you couldn't see from the beach, from the road, or the path. It was in the middle, almost completely dead. I looked at the data to think about the causes of that. How do we know what's happened and when it happened? And this was a really cool way to then incorporate the satellite data because I couldn't go back in time with my drone data. I had only just started flying it at that location. And so I can go back in time with satellite data. So that's when I went back through the archives and pinpoint exactly when those trees died. And I've managed to track that area over time as well, because I was hoping that we would see some regrowth. But unfortunately, don't have a happy story, but a cool way to tell in detail what's going on in the ecosystem and how it's changing. One of the projects that we work on the Great Barrier Reef, but also in the Torres Strait, is to look at sea cucumber populations. Now, when I'm thinking of these sea cucumber populations, they're an important fishery exported to Asia. And as a resource that the local people require both for their own, sometimes for their own food source, but then also for the financial side of things in terms of the export industry. The geospatial data that we're capturing in terms of looking at the habitat where the sea cucumbers are living, but then also counting the sea cucumbers. This information is important to help us understand how we can manage resources, if we can fish more, fish less, if we need to fish in different places, and even if we can try to find other populations of sea cucumbers or other marine creatures as well, based on the habitats where we know that they live as well.